I have a little grid that I actually took a screenshot of because I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna like memorize this. But basically,
Yeah.
there's age ranges, and there's an age range where I'm pretty sure like it's a no, like nope, we're not touching that. But then after that, like 3 to 6 months, you can be on site for 2 hours, which that means like as soon as you step foot at base camp and to the moment you get in your car to leave, that's on site. So any travel time from base
Yeah.
camp to set counts as, and that actually counts as work time as that travel.
Thank you for joining us on the Down and Cut. Today, my guest is Robyn Urhausen. She is a multifaceted professional in the film industry, having contributed significantly as a key craft services on 13 projects, an actress on 5, and in various roles across costume, art, and makeup departments. Her diverse experience offers a unique perspective on the behind the scenes magic that brings films to life. Welcome, Robyn. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Let's tell the audience how we know each other. How you reminded me that we know each other.
Well,
You
I went to your baby
yeah,
shower.
go ahead. Which I totally forgot.
That's okay. I'm
Yep,
clearly
you went to my
memorable.
baby shower. You went to high school with Jacqueline
Yes.
Spear, who is my sister-in-law, which is ironic. And for those who don't know, my wife and her family are all from the Spokane area, Colville. That's where you're located right now, is in Spokane, correct?
More or less, yeah. Cheney, but might as well just call it Spokane. No one knows where Cheney is.
Okay, right. When I hear Cheney, I think of the Cheney Stadium over in Tacoma.
I didn't even know that existed. So
That's
there
why
you
I'm
go.
like, yeah, yeah. I'm probably saying it wrong
Oh,
too.
Cheney's correct.
It's probably not Cheney. Maybe it's. But so tell us. I mean, you sent me some notes here. Your 10-year film anniversary is coming up September 2nd. You've been in this for 10 years. Tell us, how did it all start?
So my favorite way to tell this is I got into film accidentally, and it was truly because my friend who was working as a wardrobe supervisor for Z Nation injured her knee, and they just needed extra support for an incredibly heavy wardrobe day that included zombies that were glowing. They were literally like glow in the dark zombies. And she she goes, well, let's look off of our roster. I'm part of the union, so we have a roster of all the people we have to check with first. And then they're like, well, nobody's available. Let's look on the off roster, all the people that are close but not quite on. And they're like, well, crap, we've exhausted all of them as well. And Rebecca goes, hey, I know a girl. And she was actually my makeup teacher in college when I went to go be a teacher. Um, so yeah, but she remembered me. She remembered my work ethic and said, "Hey, this girl could probably do it." So on my anniversary, like wedding anniversary 10 years ago, I had a text from the costume designer saying, "Hey, are you available to work tomorrow?" And I was like, follow up text with Rebecca going, "Hey, by the way, I sent your information to the costume designer. You might hear from her." And I'm like, more of a heads up would have been nice. But if it weren't for
Oh
Rebecca having her
wow!
knee, I would not have started and got my foot in that door. And my first major project was Z Nation.
So were you acting before that though?
Just on stage.
Oh, okay, because you were saying that she was your makeup teacher or something like
Correct.
that,
For theater.
and that had to do with theater. Got it, got it. Because I was trying to understand, like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
All right. So what did you do on Z Nation? Just the costuming?
Just the costuming, and it should have just been one day player. I very specifically remember that day because I was supposed to just be there to support for set costumer, and a lot of it was finding out that the actor who was supposed to be in a hazmat suit turns out he was claustrophobic. So it was a lot of like rapidly taking off his like helmet. He was all cut out so that he can get into it real easily, and he had as much air as possible. It was nuts, but continuity was not a thing on that day. But yeah, I mostly just
Yeah.
did that and tried not to overheat because it was in the middle of summer.
Well, that's what. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too. Like, so people that have followed Z Nation and know about Z Nation, for those who are not familiar with Z Nation, Kind of describe what that's all about.
Z Nation is kind of a, I want to say, a tongue-in-cheek comedy esque show that Sci-Fi Channel aired for 5 seasons. Um, tells the story of Murphy, who is the man who was bitten by zombies and not turned, and so they're trying to get him to the CDC to see if they can make a vaccine or whatever to help. And fun fact, the prelude to it is Black Summer. If you've seen that on Netflix, it's actually the prequel, and it's, if you've ever seen Z Nation, they
Oh,
call it Black Summer, like the when the zombie outbreak happens. So
that that I mean, I'm trying to think of all the makeup, all the prosthetics in the heat, and I know Spokane is so hot.
uh-huh.
Like, what was that like? Was the stuff like just sloughing off of people because they were sweating?
Thankfully I didn't have to work or cost makeup on that show. I was just doing costumes the first
Yeah.
2 seasons, and then the last 2 seasons I did craft services. I took season 3 off to have a baby, and I didn't want to play in the apocalypse. So, but we, yeah, it there was a lot of melting, I will say, for the prosthetics. I could see it, but I didn't have to worry about it. I was mostly just like, I'd like
Oh,
pounce
good.
packs, and I was like making dirt and stuff on their costumes. And we had this like black dye that we would kind of see, maybe have it drip from their mouth onto their chest to look like bile, like they're just all on
Uh,
their chest. And so my favorite thing to do, especially with the extras, was to go up and say, "Hi, my name is Robyn. I'm going to touch your boobs." And it gave them an opportunity to just kind of laugh because it's an excitable situation, but also say like, "Hey, I've got
yeah.
boundaries. Please don't touch my chest." And I'll be like, "Cool, I got it. I'm going to drip it from a distance."
What, like, how did was continuity a problem then because of all that, the transitioning and stuff?
No, I mean, it was just on that one
Okay.
particular episode with that one guy who really struggled to be in his suit because there was no taking photos. He had to like tear off the hazmat hat as soon as they cut. Like there was
Wow.
no stopping him.
What happens to the costumes then afterwards? Are you guys like, do you guys have to wash them, or does a service come and pick them up?
Oh, we
Do you
wash
wash
them.
them at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we wash them. And then wow, my brain just. Hi, this is me on very little sleep. Welcome. It's a lot like working in the film industry. You
Oh,
got those like 12, 14-hour days,
yeah,
and then you go home. Anyway,
right.
I lost my train. Yes, we do our laundry.
That's right.
We reset the trailer.
So do you like? Do they bring in a
Oh,
laundry
it's in the trailer.
unit trailer?
It's part
Okay,
of the
cool.
costuming
Because I was
trailer.
like,
They have washer dryer unit.
interesting. Wow. So you've worked so many different areas in film production. How do you manage to adapt your skills in such a wide range of different roles behind the scenes?
That is a solid question. I feel like I'm just really friendly, and I can just kind of go, "Hey, I can do that. I can do that," and I just have a yes, let's kind of attitude. And people then trust me and go, like, "Yeah, heck yeah, she can." Whether I can't or not, it's all just confidence that I don't really have, but I say yes and we'll do it. But over just time makes it so that I can eventually start working in other departments. The short films, especially those little projects, make it so that we have so little people on the crew that you're doing multiple things. Sometimes you're in it
Yeah.
and you're costuming it and you're doing food and you're doing makeup, and like the ands are relentless. Um, but yeah, you just get more practice and more people go, "Hey, can you do it?" And you just say yes.
How do you balance the being in the film then and also participating behind the scenes? How does that work for you?
Uh, that I've only had to do a few times, and it stinks. But usually, I'm doing wardrobe and when I'm acting, and so then I have somebody else go, "Hey, can you keep an eye on me and make sure I don't mess with my buttons or zippers because those are the worst things, uh, or that I
Yeah.
haven't done anything stupid to make sure my continuity is good." For the most part, like especially on short films, the actors know pretty well to like maintain what they're supposed to maintain, unless there's buttons involved. But yeah, I have somebody else kind of keep an eye out. Be like, "Robyn, don't touch."
What now this is going to be kind of a throwing away question, but I wanted to ask it because I know some people, there's kind of that running joke of like crafty and having really good, everyone's hanging out at the crafty table and that's the most important thing. Tell me from your experience, like, why is it so important that sets have good craft services?
Oh, well, that's kind of a two-part question, and it's not a throwaway. I'm glad you brought that up. It's kind of like the water cooler of the set. It's a place where people go and they take a break, they're refreshing, they can gossip if they want. I tell you, we know a lot of gossips at NetCrafty because if they're not talking to us directly, they are saying it next to us, and we are little sponges. But also, there's this mentality, as the second part of it, is a well-fed crew is a happy crew. So making sure that everybody's getting what they need to stay fueled and to keep working. And if they're really good, they will actually walk some snacks up to camera crew because the camera guys often don't get a chance to even leave. Barely they're like, I need to pee, and then they're right back at it. So bringing them water, bring them snacks, getting to know them and know what they like.
Has it, with everyone's allergies and food allergies and decisive things that they want to, is that difficult to kind of manage?
It can be. I love that our current people doing the paperwork. What am I looking for? We have start paperwork, and there's now like a little survey you can fill out, including like allergies, specifically food allergies, and then catering and crafty gets that information as well as the medic. Um, and then it's easier to be like, okay, this person, and then they're only here this many days, so I don't have to worry about it until they're here. Severe allergies, of course, we take those very seriously. The last set I was on was a absolute zero peanut set, absolutely no nuts for our key
Wow.
hair and for two of our actors who were children. Um, but yeah, it's so silly because I'll actually go around it. In the first week of a project, I have memorized like the person to what they eat. Like, oh, here's Sean, and I need to bring him something gluten free. Oh, here's Ryan. He likes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich around like 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Like these are things that I just memorize. But I think that's just a me thing.
That's actually impressive. That's like, I think I'd call you an expert at that point, because it's really important, because if someone who's has an allergy gets the wrong food and they don't know, I mean, that could shut the whole production down, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you've worked in front and behind the camera. How does your experience as an actress influence your work in production roles?
Boy, that's another tough one. I honestly, most of my acting has been theatrical. It's on stage. What little
Okay.
I've done on camera is uh, is on short films. Well, there was one feature, but I was also like costume designing that one. Anyway, I let me reel that back in. So what I can
Yeah.
truly say, as far as a costumer standpoint, and thinking as an actor, when I am costuming people, when I'm actually in charge of it, I am thinking as the actor, like what would make them feel confident in this scene? What would make them feel uncomfortable in this scene? I often ask them like, "Hey, are there any colors that you don't like? Any, cuts of, styles that you don't like, or they don't feel like they don't suit you?" Because if they are comfortable in what they're doing, it's going to show on the screen. If they're uncomfortable at all, it's going to be awkward, unless they're meant to be awkward, and then you costume them to make them awkward. But it's getting to know them, and again, thinking of it from an actor standpoint, like how would this help me get into character?
Have you ever started off as an actress on the shoot and it was like a small production and they were like, oh, we need someone to do something? Then you volunteer and you start becoming kind of the behind the scenes person as well. Has that ever happened?
Uh, I auditioned for that feature film I had mentioned that I was in, and I did.
What film
It
was
was called
that?
Waking Lazarus, and we never. It's still an edit. COVID hit, like it kind of put the brakes on it. But I auditioned for it. I didn't get the role I auditioned for, and then they went, "Hey, do you mind being a costume designer?" And I'm all like, "Sure, why not?" And then later they're like, "Hey, do you want to be this role?" So it was kind of I went into it with this intention,
Yeah.
didn't get it. They knew I could do this other thing, and then at one point, it wasn't even acting or costuming anymore. I remember going to Trevin's house, and he's like, "Oh, good, you're here," and like he's pulling me down into this room with the director Tony, who also wrote the play and he wrote the book. Like it's an actual book you can read. T.L. Hines, Waking Lazarus. There you go. But he's like, "So what do you think about like this space for this scene?" And I'm all like, "Uh, I don't like it, but I'm also not in charge of this. Like, why why are you asking my opinion?" And then, but he did. He wanted my opinion, and it became more of like a collaborative. Just like artists started throwing their hat into whatever.
That's great, because I think that's important to know that you have the experience across the board, and you're working with a bunch of collaborators, if that's the right word,
Sounds right. Better than what I'm saying.
collaborations of people who, yeah, people can like just, bring everyone together and grab your opinion, because it does matter, right? It doesn't. They want you to know that your opinion counts, and they also want this to be the best that everyone is involved in and making. Um, what would you say is the biggest challenges that you've faced in either costume, makeup, any other areas that you've been involved in? And then how did you overcome that challenge?
As silly as it might sound, I think the biggest is the hurry up and wait. And that's every single department is affected by hurry up and wait. And then you're like, wait, who are we waiting for? And wondering like, oh crap, is it me? Are they
Yeah.
waiting for me? And it's a little bit of panic, but and again, every department suffers from hurry up and wait.
So what are they? Who are they waiting for?
It depends. Sometimes they're like, hey, we need like hair, makeup. Are you ready? Like, can you be ready in 5 minutes? And like, yeah, we can be ready in 5 minutes. 2 minutes later, we're like, okay, are you ready? It's like, no, we said 5. Give us our full 5. And sometimes it's the lighting. So like, we'll have the actors there. Oh, this is a fun little story. So season 5 of Z Nation, it was my birthday, and we were filming in a scrapyard overnight, but it was still hot as sin because it had been over 100 degrees during the day, and they had built like this metal box essentially that they were supposed to be filming in, and they were trying to cool it down. And our lead actress, rightfully so, was like, "I'm not going in there. It's too damn hot." And trying to also make sure like nobody was going to get exhaustion or anything. But while we're all waiting on just this space trying to cool off, she starts playing music on her phone, and she's like, "Hey, birthday girl, come dance!" And so we just start having a dance party on set because like, what else were we gonna do? So
Yeah.
that was a fun day.
And then how long did it take for it to cool down for you guys to started
Oh
to go?
gosh, it was far too long in film terms. I think it was like 30 to 45 minutes, and like that's like a whole lot of scenes we could have covered in that time.
Can you describe a moment where your work in the art department significantly contributed to the storytelling of a project? Was there some kind of idea that you came up with that totally changed the tone, or anything like that really put some weight?
Um, Only in choosing a space that aforementioned, like Trevin, hey, is this room okay? And I'm like, this room looks like it belongs to a 30-year-old woman, not a 6-year-old boy. So let's look at this other room. So there was that decision, and it was a much smaller space, and it made it very awkward, which was the intention of that scene anyway. The lead character, Jude, had to be really uncomfortable because this was his estranged son. So really that, opinion, but I didn't create anything of that. One thing I did have a lot of fun with though, season 2 of Going Home, I was working a little bit with the art department there, helping out, making calls, trying to get things. And our art director goes, hey, can you make some Christian art with your kids? And I'm like, sure. And so I just had a little fun crafting time with my daughters. We made lambs, we made little angels, we made a cross with our, handprints that were, rainbow. And it was used in this beautiful,
Nice.
scene that it would happen quite a bit in season 2. Um, but it was great because these these cute little lamps, and then they were just kind of like around this space. Um, and then later, when they were done with that stage, essentially they took it all down, and the art department guy had put the 2 that were specifically my daughter's names on the back, and he hung them up over my crafty wall because I was also doing crafty on that project.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, though. That's
I could
great
look at it and be like,
to
oh,
be able to see your. Yeah, yeah. How many kids
it's
do you have?
2.
2.
Yeah, I have a
Right on.
12-year
How old
old
are they?
and a 7-year-old.
Wow. See, I have a 4-year-old. Give me some advice.
What do you need? And you know what?
So far, so far, so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, she hasn't done anything that is shocking yet.
that's good. My youngest is all about the shock and awe. But I keep saying, I'm all like, look, she's not built for film yet. Like she's full blown character. She will ham it up. She is so me, unfortunately. But I keep saying she needs to go through theater first because she needs to learn that discipline to kind of rein it in and be like, okay, I can't goof off the entire time. This is how I actually focus. Meanwhile, my 12-year-old has been doing film stuff and media stuff in general since she was 4. Because I asked her, I'm like, hey, there's an open call with ma'am. Are
Yeah.
you interested? And she goes, yeah, I'm interested. So it's pretty. She's
Oh,
my very serious kid. So
so you're with Ma'am. It sounds
yes,
like that's your
she
age.
was actually with ma'am before I was.
Very cool. Wow. Okay. Yeah. My daughter is she's seen us do so many film
Hmm.
things that she wants to be like, I want to be in a movie now. I want to make it. So we've been talking and practicing and acting and all that stuff to
Hmm.
see what would happen. But this is not about me. This is
I
about
love
you.
hearing about
So
it.
let's get back.
Because let me tell you something, Joe. You know what's fantastic? Aside from the fact that we are
Yeah,
matching right now, can I say, like with our black V-neck
that's
and
right.
blue background,
That's
I
right.
almost wore my glasses. We would have been twinsies, full on. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
all 3 of the jobs that I mainly do on set, costume, craft services, and now child welfare, I call them all set mom. I'm either making sure you're eating or you're staying hydrated,
Yeah.
or I'm making sure you're not playing with your buttons and let me fix that tear for you. And oh, this set doesn't look very safe. You need something to keep you warm? Like literally, I am set mom. So I will talk kids all day long, whether they are actual kids or film kids, because some of these adults are
Or
children.
adults even. I think we need that because even as an actor, I think we get so pumped up with adrenaline, we forget to drink
Yes.
water, we forget to take a break, And I think with the films that I've been on, it's just like you just go 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 go, and it's usually the sit down, hurry up, and wait is where you start taking to
Yeah.
start to deflate, and you're like, okay, let me go visit the craft dude and see what we
Do some
have,
gossiping.
and let me learn my
Yep.
lines.
I will say, and
That's usually what
you're
happens.
not wrong with the, forgetting to drink water, like such a small essential thing. Because this last project I did, half of my time working on it was child welfare slash set teacher, um, and the amount of the older kids that would push themselves and would not advocate for themselves. I'm like, hey, if you need to take a break, let's take a break. And sometimes I was just calling it for them. I say, hey, his name was Cedric, our first AD. I'm like, hey, Cedric, this one needs a break. This one said that she came
Yeah.
into it with a sore throat and she's going to need water and she's going to be running a bunch. So let's make sure somebody on the other end has a bottle of water for her. And even though they would offer it to her and she'd be like, no, it's fine, I would yell at her. I'm like, drink the water. But like
Yeah. Yeah.
they, especially kids, I think they're worried about like, if I don't do this, then I'm never going to do this again. And it's like, no, you're allowed to give yourself
Right.
breaks. You're allowed to take, water breaks, pee breaks, whatever you need, because we can't make the film if you suddenly passed out.
Right. And I think that's a testament to your wisdom and your empathy to really recognize those things. And I think a lot of people, like for our listeners who are learning to get into the film production, if they want to make a film with kids, which, we see shorts all the time with kids in it, it's like you have to be mindful
Mm-hmm.
on making sure that they're taken care of so that they can give you the best performance as well.
Precisely.
Right.
Precisely.
It's about costume. I wanted to see how do you balance like creativity and uh, the actual designing of the costumes for like a need being super creative and this is going to look great on screen versus this is what the character wears. How do you balance those two things?
Trial and error, getting to know the character and getting to know the actor who's going to play the character. All of those things kind of play into the all end, the end all. I
Yeah,
don't know. My brain just took a vacation. Um,
I say the same thing.
yeah, it's not a in depth answer, but it is how I approach it. At least, I get to know the script. I get to know actually as a when I do the costume designing, I read the script 3 times minimum. And the
Okay.
first time is to just read it to enjoy it because you want to get into the story and be like, okay, this is how it's going. The next time you're imagining it, and this just depends on which department you're in. So if I were directing it, I would then read it as a director. If I were costuming it, I would read it as a costumer. If I were acting in it, I would read it as an actor, as you get. But when I'm doing it as a costumer, I also read it that third time as an actor. Like, how would they need to move in these pieces?
So because looking at that type of aspect, like I know, do the scripts have that definition or that description of what the character's wearing? I mean, sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they
So then what
don't.
do you
It
do?
then it's informed in the storytelling. So if you can kind of see, like, sometimes they're like, this person stands awkwardly, like, you're okay, this kind of informs what kind of person this is going to be. And those are all just first impressions, because then you meet the actors who then bring these characters to life. And then you have that moment to be like, okay, this is the direction they're thinking. This is closer to what I was thinking. This is what the director is thinking. Now let's marry all of those thoughts.
If you're working on a smaller budget and you're part of the costuming and you're doing the crafty as well, but the actors have to bring their own wardrobe, how do you handle that?
Uh, you have no idea. So Spokane has this thing called 50 Hour Slam, and it's where we do a film race and we make a film in 50 hours from writing it, which we always have secret criteria, which is a location, a line, a prop. So it's all fun and brand new. It's written overnight, and then we film it all day, and then the last day is editing and submitting it, right? So it is like the little mini marathon of filming here in Spokane. And there has been many a times where I was in charge of costuming and craft services slash catering, because it's a small project, so we don't need too many people. And am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Cool, because my dumbass will do things all like, pizza's really easy, or I can make some lasagnas, to like bring. And then I have to go, hey guys, costuming is really mad at Crafty right now. Can you guys make sure to like bring a jacket to eat so that you don't get it on your costume or like change out of it? And then the joke's on me, because I am that person. I am mad at myself for giving them the wrong kind of food to eat when they only have the one outfit. So yeah, it's joke's on me.
So what would you say is the safe type of food then?
Oh God,
What would you recommend?
honestly, there is no safe food. If an actor is going to get food, they're gonna do it. Like I try my best to be like, hey, background, I'm not gonna give you the Cheetos because I know you're gonna get that dust all over your costume. But
Right.
like you can
Yeah.
only, lead the horse to water, so to speak.
So like something like the 50 hour slam. Come on. Is that like 2 more hours than the 48 hour?
I mean, essentially, and I don't know, because you guys have a 48, right?
Yeah, is that a licensing thing? Is that like a franchise thing or 48 hour?
Yeah. I don't know. 50 hours just always what Spokane has had. And I'm actually sporting their fun little
It's hilarious.
sticker on my water bottle.
Yeah.
Also, Jack.
You guys are rebels. Breaking it. Break that barrier.
Yep.
I've heard of 100 hour. I've heard of
Yes.
48 hour. Now I've heard of 50 hour.
I've done 100 hours. Fun.
Was it? You probably have more time to breathe as
A little
well.
bit.
So, what do you do if a character brings something to the set and says, "Okay, I thought my character would wear this," and there's a disagreement? No, your character wouldn't wear that, and all the other options that they bring doesn't match either. What do you do?
I'm not against just being like, hey, crewman, can we borrow that? Like, if we can pull, or if somebody can like run to a house real quick and get something. Usually on these competitions or film racings, I have actually called my husband and said, hey, we forgot this, or we need this, can you come bring it to me? And he will, because it's on a Saturday.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's like, yeah, sure, I'll pop the girls in the car and we'll go. So, including like bringing a birthday cake I forgot to bring, because it was our director's birthday that day.
Oh man, well that's kudos to your husband. That's huge. I had we were doing cousin, and Philip he had his own hat on, and it was, I can't remember, I don't know what the hats are called, but they were kind of like Scottish looking.
Oh yeah.
And I had a black ball cap on, and I was like, "Why are you wearing that hat?" And he goes, "I don't know, it's what I have." He goes, "Later, let me wear yours." I'm like, okay, and it worked.
Yeah.
Him wearing just my black hat, I'm like, okay. So it's interesting. There's times where I've had costuming. I bring my stack of wardrobe, and I've had costuming tell me to wear something that just to me wouldn't look good at all. Like I had a t-shirt, then I had a sweatshirt, and then I had a jacket. And I was like, this just looks so ridiculous to me. But I was like, okay, whatever you want. Do you ever have arguments with actors that go, I don't think that's gonna work?
Yes.
How do you manage it?
With a lot of grace, because I hear them out. I say, hey, why are we refusing to wear this right now? And then they give me their reasons, and I go, okay, I've talked to the director and this is what he wants. Shall we go and talk to the director together and say, like, let's find a compromise, or if this is something he's not willing to budge on. Um, but usually, like, between me and the actor, we can handle it. Nothing has to go to like a director. But again, for me, it goes back to what are they comfortable in? What's going to help them get through the scene? And if it's an emotional scene, like, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable. Like, please don't wear the sweater
Yeah.
over, the button up because it looks cool layering. It makes you look a different way. It's like, no, you're still wearing a button up. You still look like a professional person, and you're sad. And that's okay.
Looking at the different background roles that you've had on set,
There's a lot.
a lot of the works, yeah, I mean, but a lot of it, like from a bias point of view, it's underappreciated in filmmaking, and a lot of people don't really talk a whole lot about the background stuff and stuff that goes into it. How do you advocate the importance for these roles on set?
A lot of that is, I mean, I do my best to work on union projects because that's where we get the most security. Because once we're working on a union, and by union I mean IATSE. I am part of IATSE Local 488, which encompasses Washington, Oregon, and Montana, and I think Northern Idaho. I should know that, but I don't, unfortunately. I know Rebecca would be mad at me right now. She's our vice president of our local. But
The union is different than SAG-AFTRA.
yes,
It's a different type of.
it is 100%
Okay.
different. Because SAG-AFTRA works with the actors and stunt coordinators and now intimacy coordinators, whereas IATSE deals with the camera crew and costume and basically all of the crafts that help make this filming possible, except for PAs. They don't have a union yet, but we're working on it. And then there's, of course, DGA, which are all of like the directors and ADs and producers.
I honestly, this is new to me. I didn't know that existed. So you're educating me because, as an actor, the only thing I knew about was SAG-AFTRA.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I didn't know there was a completely different union for behind the scenes as well, which is, that's
and
new news
and
to
it's
me.
great because then once we're in the union, and it takes 30 days in a craft within a year to make it, then and then you of course have to like say, yes, I will join the union, I will pay the dues, which those are all fun things actually because I get some great health insurance from it, bonus. But what it also does is it lets us know when projects come in that our union, they have to hire us like from our roster, and that helps us a little more job security.
And the fact that you're diverse in different many roles, that they can just put you anywhere. What is it like SAG-AFTRA where you can only work on union projects then?
No.
Okay, so you can work on indie stuff.
We can absolutely work on indie stuff. There's not like a thing that a waiver we have to sign saying like, my intellectual property is not going to be, for anything else. It's just we're having for fun. But when you're a crewman, it's you're just making a film for fun, and you get to have that joy and then just play with your craft or jump into a new craft. What we try to do is if there's projects that come through that don't have at least an IATSE union funding or backing, rather, is that we can try to flip the project. So we report our work and say, hey, there's enough of us working on this project that are union. We can put some pressure on the producers and say, hey, we need this to be a union project, because then that pays into our hours for our dues and for our insurance, and pays into our pensions and all that other mumbo jumbo that I'm not great at, but I'm still learning.
No, but it sounds like, so you're doing this full time then, right? You're working on films full time.
Whenever projects
That's awesome.
come in.
I mean, I think a lot of us, that's kind of the big goal, right? To make a living doing film, period. And so kudos to you. I think I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I think it's easy to think about it, but not really know about how the whole nuances of everything works. How big is the film community in Spokane? I know there's a lot of things that are filmed out there. I know there's, films, but is that a good hub for someone who's saying, I need to either go to Atlanta, I need to go to, what is it, New Mexico, Spokane, Vancouver, Oregon, Portland, it's like, how big is it out in Spokane?
What's the size? I love this question. It has grown. I will give it that. It's still not as big of a crew base as we want. So when we do have projects here, we don't 100% hire local. Sometimes it's from across the state, which is still considered a distant hire. They're still part of our union, which is great. Sometimes we have people from Oregon come up, and that all depends on just how big the project is. Like Train Dreams was huge, and we needed a lot of people. So we had people come up from Oregon and support in places like hair and makeup, um, which is awesome. But I am actually really excited for the growth in Spokane because we have a very diverse landscape over here. Like your side's the pretty
Yes.
side of the state, but ours is all like the hot mess of like what we can do, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really cool right now. There is a producer, his name is Rich Cowan, and he and Dan Merchant, who is a writer producer, who went in on this building in locally in a town next to Spokane, and they're essentially turning it into a studio. So we still have a set built there from a series that we filmed 2 seasons on. Still holding out for a third season, so it hasn't been taken down. But we're basically based out of there, and if we need to have like studio work, we can film it there. We can build a little micro set somewhere and like take care of that. So that just keeps growing, and it's really exciting to see.
Do you ever travel over to this side of the state for work?
Train Dreams, this last one I did was the first one that I've had to travel for. And I don't mean I'm used to like driving to the next town. Like I live in Cheney, so like I had to drive to North Spokane for Z Nation a lot of times because we filmed at Kaiser Aluminum, which was the old rundown one and looked like the apocalypse. So it was perfect for that, but it sucked for my driving 40
Yeah.
minutes one way every day. Uh, but
Ooh.
this particular one for Train Dreams, they actually called it the Train Dreams Tour. We were based in Airway. We went to Medical Lake and filmed. We were filming in Spokane. We filmed in Tico. We filmed in Chewelah, in Colville, and Medellin Falls, and we went to Kirkland to do some studio work there. And then they ended by filming in Snoqualmie. I did not join them for that last leg, but yeah, they filmed for a week in Snoqualmie.
They have a studio in
Yes,
Kirkland?
Kirkland, yeah. Um,
I didn't know that.
I didn't either until I was like, oh hey, we need to film a burning forest, and we can't actually set a forest on fire. That would be very bad. Although, and it breaks my heart a little bit because last year we had the Gray Fire over in Medical Lake that burnt a lot of stuff. I used to be a substitute teacher at Medical Lake, and a lot of my former students were like, "Hey, man, my family's home just burnt down," and so like that was hard for me.
Wow.
And then because of the storytelling, we actually needed burnt remains of trees and new growth. So like that was a beautiful part of that. But to say I'm now driving through someone's house's ashes was really like heartbreaking. But I'm hoping that when
Oh,
this is all
sure.
done, it's very beautifully done, and the people from the area who lent us their places can say, "Hey, thank you for kind of honoring our space." But back to
Yeah.
Kirkland. But yeah, we had to.
So Kirkland's like it's like the volume then. It's just screens,
it,
right?
it was screens, and
Okay.
if I think about it, I will send you a photo. I just like I'm like,
Okay.
am I allowed to send these photos yet? Because like they just finished filming, they're still doing some reshoots on some stuff. Um, Let me check with the
Nice.
NDA first, and then I'll see if I can send it to you now
Okay.
or if I have to wait till the film comes out. But I was there specifically for child welfare. We had these two twins that were swapping to play the same character, a 2-year-old,
Oh.
and uh, they were supposed to be running. Well, not them running. The mom was supposed to be carrying them through the smoke and the forest fire. And I thought it was so. I okay. I'm not used to like big projects and like me being the important one. I'm usually just like the quiet, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll just step in and I'll help where I need to. But I was
Yeah.
waiting and sitting with the twins, and our key PA comes up and says, "Hey, they're ready for you." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go." And I'm about to grab one of the twins, and they're like, "No, no, no, just you." And I'm like, "Okay." And I don't have a walkie at this point for whatever reason. If I'm working with talent, they're not going to give me a walkie, and it was really annoying. But I'm walking, and as I'm
Huh.
walking, I'm hearing them like call on the walkie, like Robyn's flying in. I'm like, why is this so important? It shouldn't be. But what they wanted was for me to see the action that was going to happen because the actress she was going to be holding this child and running, and they wanted to say, we're going to show you what it looks like. and we want to make sure that there's no dangers. Like if there's a trip hazard or if, there's anything that you think is going to cause injury, like let's talk about it. And the only thing I could think of is, I was like, the first time I walked into the room was all like, this looks like a bunch of trees on fire. Like the fire on the trees are, crackling, and it's the coolest thing. But I'm like, 2-year-old's probably gonna freak out.
Yeah.
So as I'm watching
Yeah.
the rehearsal, I'm also like taking a picture, and there's atmosphere and stuff.
Secretly.
Yeah, but truly. So then what I do is when I'm done, I'm like, all right, let me go back and talk to the twins, because I wasn't ready to just be like, yeah, sure, send them in. So I go back to the twins,
Yeah.
and I talk to the one who was going to be in that particular scene, and I show her the picture, and I'm all like, hey, look, this is what you're going to go see. Isn't it pretty? Look at it's like, what
How old
color
is
is
she?
it? She was 2. So I was all like, what color is it? And she goes,
2?
orange. I'm like, yeah, it's orange, isn't it? Let's go into the pretty orange space. It's just pretend. It's not real fire, but it looks cool, doesn't it? So like set mom was like on it. I'm like, oh God, you're gonna freak out this kid if we don't walk her in at first. So the other
Yeah.
kid they had swapped, and then they did water, because it was like a stunt where the actor falls off a cliff onto a riverbank, and they built a little tiny pool as that riverbank. And so they're like, the
Very
kid's going to
cool.
be in that water. So they're like, Robyn, feel the water. Is it warm enough? Is it safe enough? I'm all like, okay. So as long as somebody's in there, and I was about ready to take off my shoes and jump in there and just be off camera and be like, I'm going to grab this kid in case they slip. But our
Yeah.
first AD ended up doing that instead. So it was very nice of him. But it was the same idea, to take pictures
that's
and be like,
fascinating.
hey, this is what you're going to go do.
Yeah, because you're 2 years old. Obviously, you can't really distinguish. This is pretend,
Yeah.
right? And just there's probably no sound,
No,
right?
no sound.
You don't hear
Mhm.
the wind. It's all added in
Yep.
post, so they don't have to worry about that, which is probably going to be more detrimental to a 2-year-old
Right.
than just a visual, right? The visual is just like, wow, it's so bright, everything's flickering,
But to even
you
just
know.
give them any sort of prep, just be like, hey, this is what you're walking into. Especially since those,
Yeah,
fun fact about those twins, because I got to hang out with their mom. And it turns out their mom not only lives in the same town as me, but lives in the same housing as me. And she's like, literally, her house is in my backyard, essentially. Like, I can be like, hey,
oh
go
wow.
see those twins anytime I want. So,
How did she find out about the project? Was she just entered
oh
into
gosh,
casting
there was a
call?
casting call saying, "Hey, we need twins that are this age that meet these requirements." So basically, blonde and blue eyed, and we also had 6-month-olds.
Nice.
So that was the youngest we had.
And was so on the 2-year-old, is the mom allowed? Is she on set as well
Yes,
with them?
yes. It is
Okay.
required for child welfare and safety that your child welfare representative is on set with the child and one of the parents or guardians. So it's 2 people hawkeyeing these children, on top of the AD
Yeah.
also being in charge of safety and keeping an eye out. So yeah.
So we're gonna go down a little rabbit hole because you're making me think of some questions now. What about, especially about kids, because I didn't know anything. Isn't there a rule that a child at a certain age can only be on screen for so
Mhm.
long?
Yeah,
Now, what
I
is that?
have a little grid that I actually took a screenshot of, because I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna like memorize this. But basically,
Yeah.
there's age ranges, and there's an age range where I'm pretty sure like it's a no, like nope, we're not touching that. But then after that, like 3 to 6 months, you can be on site for 2 hours, which that means like as soon as you step foot at base camp and to the moment you get in your car to leave, that's on site. So any travel time from base
Yeah.
camp to set counts as, and that actually counts as work time as that travel. But then you have work time, which is almost always half of what it is. So then they have an hour that they can be working. So that's getting into costume, that's traveling to set, uh, getting back from set, and getting out of costume. So there's, yeah.
Wow.
And the
Okay.
older you get, the longer
That all
it goes.
counts.
And the only deficit, I will say, the bad part, is that all of them can go like their start time. Once their start time is, their end time is pretty set. They can only be here for 2 hours or 4 or 6 or 8 or 10. But no matter what, they can't go after 12:30 a.m. So if you have night shoots, your children
Sure.
have to be like tucked in right at the front, and that's only if it's a non-school day. If it's a school night, then they have to be out by 10.
Oh, interesting. What about screen time? How long can they be on screen?
That depends on the age. Let me. I think I still have.
Oh, okay.
I could probably just send that to you as well. But there's just a handy little grid from the. I'll have to send that to you too. From the
And that's all union based, though. Those are union rules, right?
uh oh, fun fact. So
That's just
that is
okay.
specifically through the Studio Teachers Union and Guidebook that they use in California. California has a child labor law um, program. Obviously, they had to because that's where all of the work was being done, and children were, getting used, and their parents were taking their money. So it's like the document's huge, and it's all like these are
Yes.
the requirements, these are the times, and this is what parents have to do to make sure that they're not taking advantage financially of their children. This particular one, like Washington, we will have kids on set, and there is usually a set teacher on set. It's not a requirement because Washington labor laws for children are different, and they don't have
Oh,
entertainment labor laws in Washington for children. So then we
oh,
go based off of SAG rules typically because the kids are always talent. But this particular project was a California based project. And when they came up, they started playing by California rules. So I took California rules and I applied it to Washington and was all like, nope, guys, this kid's going to pumpkin in like 3 seconds. So let's go.
all right. One more question about kids. What, when you see scenes of kids crying on screen, how does that work? I mean, they're not really acting, right? If it's a baby, if it's a 2 year
Well,
old.
here's the funny thing on this particular project, this last one, we were actually trying to have the kids be like happy. And we had this one baby that just would not stop crying just a whole time. And so we're like, well, those that baby's actually crying because she was unhappy or she wasn't used to the actor holding her. Could have been anything, right?
Sure.
You know how children are. They're stranger danger or like this
Yeah.
isn't comfortable. This isn't my normal, you know. And that was again like the 6 month olds. They were very like mom, but not mom because they're 6 month olds.
Sure. Sure.
Um, but yeah, as far as like forcing them to cry, it's usually that is such a horrible thing to say, forcing them to cry. Um, oh, you know what? I have a totally relevant thing for having children cry, and it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
the last project I was on. So a couple years ago, beginning of COVID, a friend of mine was doing a sizzle reel for a script that she was going to hopefully do, and she said, "Hey, I need a little girl to be sad on a phone call." And I go, "Okay, well, I have an autoimmune disease, so I'm not going to go playing in COVID world. So could we do this as a practical?" So she's like, "Yeah, totally." And we were like just sitting in my closet with like two phones, and we would call in to like as the actor who would answer, and then she would do all of the acting with just her voice because you don't see my daughter at all, it's just her voice. And because I knew that was going to be the
Yeah.
case, and because I went to school to be a teacher for Spanish and theater, so I'm like, okay, at the very least I can teach my kid how to cry. And so I, not regrettably because she hasn't used it for evil, but I taught my daughter how to evoke that feeling and to cry, and she was only like 8. So like that's
Wow.
hard to do for an 8-year-old to like kind of tap into it and be it
Yeah.
structured in her vocal cords, in her chest, in her voice, so that it would read over a telephone call and be picked up over a phone.
Wow.
Because there was no ADR, there was no nothing. There's just the practical. And she, I mean, I'm her mom, so I'm proud, but I'm all like, she nailed it. She crushed it.
Well, how did you just had her think about feelings and how did that work? What was your
So it's
secret?
a for me anyway, because I'm one of those dorks that can cry on command. But it's you can do a sad feeling, or there's like facial expressions or breathings that you do when you're actually crying. So like I don't know how if you're like a sensitive type Joe, if you cry a lot, but if you've ever paid attention to like your facial distortions when you cry or like how it is you're breathing or not breathing because you're like I can't, and sometimes
Yeah.
recreating those can help trigger that response, and then pair that with like thinking of something sad, or if you have like a really sad story that you're about to portray, think about that situation, and then little magic happens. Sometimes tears come, sometimes it doesn't, but it's all right in the vocals.
The last time I cried was The Greatest Showman.
No.
But it wasn't because it was sad. It was because it was so inspirational.
Ah, okay.
Inspirational things kind of make me tear up.
Yeah.
I think Jerry Maguire, when after the whole game and he goes to,
Mhm.
give him a hug, it kind of made me teary. I was like, oh, it's so inspirational. It's such a good friendship. Good things kind of make me cry. Bad things, so much.
That's okay. That's self-preservation at that point. You're like, I can't be weak. I have to be strong in this moment. But like, you're pumping me up.
I gotta be tough. Right. I'll just think of like good things that'll make me cry.
Absolutely.
What? Let me ask you: as we're kind of docking the ship of our interview, what are you working on right now? Anything that you're working on or in the near future that you want to promote?
You know what? I am currently unemployed. But that's okay. We just had a big project come through. Sometimes there's like a little bit of wait time, which is great, to kind of let like post kind of trickle and we get our crew base back and work on the next project that's coming in.
Yeah,
That said, I get to work on just being home with my kids and being
that's
a mom.
awesome.
However, I guess I do have. I can't promote it yet. I can talk about it. There is a short film I actually
Okay.
worked on last summer. I did 8 days in a row of filming. And those were like 12, 14-hour days in a row. Because
Holy
I went from
smokes!
one short film that was 4 days to another short film that was another 4 days. And in one, I was a
Oh
costumer, and
wow!
the other, I was a costume designer. And so by the time I'm on the second one, I'm like, I'm just dead, you guys. I'm so sorry. And my daughter's with me, like helping, be a costumer as well and background and
Yeah,
all that fun stuff. But that second one,
that's cool.
this soon, it's called Untouchable. And it will hopefully be finished soon. And Amy Paxton is one of the brains behind it. Kendra and Cheryl is another brain behind it. Um, just Untouchable. You can check it out on their Instagram or Facebook pages. Uh, it's
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Like I can't. Amy wrote this beautiful one woman script that was meant for her on stage, and her friend Kendra was like, "Hey, how can we translate this to film?" And it's kind of like the growing pains of like middle school and high school, and Amy is playing herself. This is her story, and a lot of the vibe is like a little bit of Lizzie McGuire. There's going to be some like little animated things, but there's also some oh god, what's I can't think of the show right now. Fleabag, Fleabag. So like those moments where she's directly talking into the camera, or like making
Fleabag.
faces or whatever, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
so great. And then the era, of course, because it's based on Amy's actual life. We were looking at like very late '90s and like oh god, the Y2K fashion. Gross. That was not a fun time. I'm all like having flashbacks. I'm like, this is my 20-year high school reunion this summer, and now I'm like dressing people like
Yeah.
it. This is too much. But that's the next thing that's
How do
coming
you
up.
how do you how do you find the costumes if they're out of stock?
Here's the fun thing. So, fashion likes to recycle. And so, starting last summer, we started seeing more of like '90s and Y2K fashion. And right now, we're heavy into the Y2K fashion. And I'm sure you've seen around like the little
Okay.
jelly shoes or like the chokers. And you probably don't pay attention to
Oh,
those
the
things. Ask,
chokers.
ask Caitlin.
I don't. I wear this a V-neck for 20 years. That's all I need. V-neck.
Oh, man.
Done.
You know what? Just go through the store right now. There's a lot of like '90s clothing in stores right now, and man, my daughter likes to be like, "Wow, you guys wore this." I'm like, "Yeah, well, we had no choice." So
I was like that with bell bottoms. I'm like, come on, really?
yeah,
Mom jeans, come on,
but those
really?
are things like the
Yeah.
high waisted. They don't call them mom jeans right now. They're just calling them high waisted pants, or like
High
instead of
waist.
bell bottoms, they were like, let's just call them flare pants. Like they just renamed them, but it's the same. It just keeps recycling.
It's the same. Someone just took them out the back warehouse and were like, hey, we have some extra of these. Should we just throw these and make it a trend? Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great idea. Let's get
Or
rid of
someone feels nostalgic and they're like, man, remember when this was popular? And then they're like, sure, we should do that again. Fashion's weird.
You can have to send me the links to the film that you're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about, the Instagram pages. And then I always ask two questions for people. What is your favorite film production technology or tech?
Like as pertaining to my departments.
Anything.
I mean,
Anything.
lighting is important to me.
Lighting. Do you have a favorite light?
No, I honestly don't. I'm sorry. Maybe this is probably
Okay.
my favorite thing because a lot of auditions happen
Yeah.
with this.
Right. The
The
backdrop.
backdrop. Because honestly, right now, if I didn't have the backdrop, you would see my bed that has not been made, and there's like a slew of like toys up on the headboard because like my daughters like to give us stuffed animals as gifts, so they just sit up there and yeah, bookshelves, the Lego set,
So
like
good.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works. All right. So the next question is, what are your thoughts on
Oh
AI?
god. I hate the term AI, and I think that's because my husband's a software engineer. He he's very much like it's not what's happening is it's not artificial intelligence. It's truly just like I'm taking this and I'm pushing it with something else. Like there's nothing smart about it. It's just merging things. Like his is like
Mhm.
intelligence is sentience, you know. That's why he's all like, I don't trust robots. And you know, if you've ever watched iRobot, like that's his stance. Like, no, we're the robots are gonna kill us. And I'm sure you've seen Bluey, because you know, you got a little. Do you remember the Daddy
Yeah.
Robot episode where Bandit is trying to, or he's the robot, and the kids keep making him pick up all the all the things, and he goes,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
well, the problem isn't the things that I have to pick up; it's the things making the mess." And so he just scoops them up and throws them in the bin, like his children. Like that. That
Yeah.
is what you know AI is really going to be like if we give them sentient. So all of that said,
Yeah.
I hate the digital technology that is allowing for things like we had to have that strike last year with SAG because of again AI, but they were like trying to bargain with background and say like, hey, for like a fee of $500, we'll just you know motion capture you in your existence, and then we're allowed to just use your existence in perpetuity. And it's like that's no, that's not okay. You know, that's their
Right.
living. Even if they're a background actor, like they still get paid. And the fact that they could do that with, you
Mm-hmm.
know, actors and having these things that say, hey, in the technical world, we're taking away the art from the artists by allowing the computer to do the heavy lifting. Some things like reshoots, and they're like, hey, we don't have, you know, the time to go back. Sure, I guess, you know, try to make do with what you can in a studio and green screens. That's, you know, that's fine. But if wasn't it
Yeah.
recently there was a car ad that was completely done by a computer, like a person behind the computer, like he designed it, he did all the stuff, but like there was no you know director, there was no you know grip or electric or costume, like there was nothing, and it's
Yeah.
why you would just take all of those jobs away, and for what purpose? Because then you lose that
Mm-hmm.
love that comes from creating. Sorry.
What? No, I mean that's a good point, and I think this is why I wanted to get people's opinions because, like, so let me ask you this then: when you guys had the forest fire at, at the Kirkland
Mhm.
Studios, was that artificial intelligence? Was that graphics? Was that
Definitely not.
someone created it, or was it
That
footage?
is, well, in that case, it was like a mix of footage and somebody created it. But I think the important thing is someone did it, not just, you know, a program that somebody typed up and said, okay, run, and then they steal all the information to make things happen. Like
Right.
there's a difference. I feel.
There is. Yep. Yeah, you got to have someone who's trained and been in that environment. I think I just read in the news that the actors and voice actors for video games are getting ready to strike
Oh,
because of that very reason.
that would make
Yep.
sense. Yeah, because yeah,
Yep.
especially with motion capture and the actors. I know Shelby Young is one
Yeah.
who does a lot of voiceover acting and video game voiceover acting, and she recently got to do the motion capture because she was being the movements for the character in the video game. So it's like adding an extra level, and that's
Yeah.
cool. And they did it for the game Cats. I think it's called Cats. Did you hear about this? They actually like put little like
No.
motion capture things on cats, and then they had them climb up different terrains and stuff, and they recorded it so that in this game these cats were uber realistic, and it like
Oh
the
wow.
main characters, the cats, you know, it could just be called cats,
Oh,
but yeah,
interesting.
it's and it's cool what they can do. But again, it starts
Yeah.
somewhere with someone.
And someone got paid for
Someone
that.
got paid for that.
The cat's
The
owner
cat's owner
got
does
paid
get
for that.
paid
It
for that.
wasn't just developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, animals on
Very
set. Like
cool.
they're fun until they're not. But yes, somebody is getting paid.
Yeah.
There were days where we had like a horse wrangler because we had horses on set, or chicken wrangler. That's a weird one to have on a
Kid
on a
wrangler.
on a call sheet. Chicken wrangler. I'm like, okay, that's the
Right.
world we live in now.
Well, thank you, Robyn. Thank you for your time. What's the best way people can reach you? Is it through the union roster? Is that how that works?
If they want to hire me, yeah, sure. Go to IATSE488.org and then look up members and all that fun stuff. Or you can check out my Instagram, Robyn_your art, which is a mix of my maiden and current last name. I will say that account I keep public because when I started Z Nation, I kept getting these weird friend requests on Facebook, and I'm like, what the
Oh
heck is
yeah.
happening here? And it turns out like it was huge in Brazil. So I kept getting all these people from Brazil trying to friend request me. I'm like, no, my kids are on this. So I shut it down, locked it down. Unless I've met you in person, we are not Facebook friends. But my Instagram, I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever. I don't put my kids on there. And if I do, it's with permission from them. That's an important detail. And it's mostly about my
Mhm.
MS and what I can still do with my hands while I got them. So it's mostly like me making cakes and baking.
Well, very cool.
But you can also check me out there. You can message me there as well. Ooh, one last thing.
Perfect. We will link that in our show
I love it.
notes.
I'll throw out one more thing because I
All
think this
right.
is such a fun thing. The last film I got to
Yeah.
work on, I got to make a cake for the lead actress's son who was having a fourth birthday and they weren't in their original country. And so like and she didn't know I was making it. The coordinator goes like, "Hey, this is the situation. Can you make this cake?" I'm like, "Sure. What's the kid want?" So I make it. It's my first ever making like a construction cake. So I have like little construction toys on there and backhoe.
Oh,
Freaking
that's
adorable.
awesome.
And I'm full of anxiety. Like, is she gonna like it? And I, pass off this cake, and I hear like it goes well, and I'm like, cool, but maybe I'll actually hear from the actress herself. And on the actual day, because it was later, we were filming later that day, and I'm like, "Oh, it's your son's birthday." She goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "I made his cake," and she goes, "Oh my god, it was amazing!" And she starts showing me pictures of her son and the cake and like how happy he was, and I'm like,
Oh,
so just a little way to spread
that's
joy.
awesome. Yes, that's all what life is
Yeah,
about.
and if you can
That's what we're
do these
doing.
little things, and again, I my hands are very important to me. I craft, I make things, I bake, so use them while I got them.
Those are good
Yeah,
tools. Thank you,
thank you
Robyn. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely keep in
for sure.
touch.